How you doing, folks? You're watching Onward with Onrie Live, and I'm your humble host, Onrie Kompan. This week, I got awesome guests. I met these guys a couple weeks ago on a panel. I got Knowles and Steph Cannon here. They're going to talk about comics. They're going to talk about all kinds of awesome stuff. All right, they've been waving already because they want to say hi to you guys. Hold on, there you go. Say hi, and then I'm going to try and fix this up in a minute.
How's
here.
It going?
Hold on, there's Matt.
What's going on, everybody?
Yep. Steph. All right, now how do I figure this out so that we can all see each other, but I'm not the big one because I really hate being the big turd on the screen
Well,
here.
I think what happens is when somebody talks, they'll actually supposed to be where they'll move over to be in the big screen. But
if I do this one, hold on.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
That works too.
Oh, we figured it out.
We can take this off.
You know, I gotta say, like, every day I've been learning something new tech-wise, because it's like, you know, when we're out on these at these shows and everything, it's just like, I mean, you got to be techie too, but not on the same level because it's more like you're talking and stuff. But like now it's like I've been picking. I never did streaming like this before, and I never like really had time to like do it. So like I'm really grateful because it's given me a chance to meet you guys. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys are working on, what you do, because you know we've seen each other on the front lines at conventions, but we never actually got to talk, and now we can get to know each other. So take it away.
I'll let you go first, Steph, because I always end up saying everything you want to say. So
Okay, so I'm not used to going first. I'm Steph Cannon. That's Matt Knowles. We are in Symmetry Creations. We are a content creating duo. We are comic writers and comic creators, and we just released our newest thing is issue 2 of our series Tales from Nocturnia, which is a medieval fantasy series. And we just released that, just fulfilled the Kickstarter packages and got those all out before everything crazy happened. So, but we also do a steampunk time travel series. And we are just kind of trying to keep on creating in the middle of everything that's going on. So, yeah, Matt, you go, because I don't ever introduce. I wasn't ready for that.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Matt Knowles. I'm the other half of In Symmetry Creations. That is actually the name of the company that Steph and I write under. We decided to create In Symmetry Creations because we found ourselves working on quite a few titles together. She was a writer, I was a writer before we met, and we realized that we had a really good chemistry and a really good working relationship when it came to all the things that we did. So we decided that instead of just having all these individual titles and individual things out there, which we still do, we wanted to have an umbrella that people could go and look at In Symmetry Creations, and they could find out where our next appearances are going to be, which, spoiler alert, there are none. You could find out about our titles, and there's at least a little bit about the title there. And then if you want to get more information, you can go to the title's individual site, or you can go to our YouTube channel that is basically for Heirs of Isildur, which is our steampunk time travel series. Because that is the thing that actually happened first, and there's music videos and metal albums and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. But yeah, so that's where we are to start, is myself coming from writing these big gigantic epics, and Steph coming from writing very smaller 1-page, 5-page stories, and putting those two thought processes together has been a very interesting dynamic for us.
That is awesome. Hold on. God damn it. Why do I got to take up the whole screen? I don't want to take up the whole screen. Hold on. They had this thing worked out. We had it perfect. Yes, there we go. There you go. That's the one. All right. Button. Now I remember that button. Excellent, guys. You know, it's interesting because I remember in 2009 when I was like kind of first getting my like breaking comics, like I went to this bar. It was where the after party was at Wizard World Chicago, and Chicago's my hometown. So it was just like I came to this show. And they had brought Mark Millar in, and he was sitting with like a couple Marvel editors. And so I was at this bar, and I go and I sit down with them. And I wasn't invited. They were eating. I just sat down next to them. Because at that point, I just like, you know, you gotta put yourself out there. And you guys know what that's all about. So here I am. Yeah, of course. So here I am sitting with them. And the editor you know, his editor was the person I started talking to. And she told me that, like, you know, comics is a team sport, and here I see you guys working together and doing your thing. How long have you guys been working together, and what tell us a little bit about your production process and like, you know, how you guys kind of like, you know, powwow and how it all works? Because you guys are also from different, you know, you're in Florida, and Steph, you're in
California.
LA. Oh, look at that. All right. Yeah.
Bi-coastal
for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, real quick question for you. Is there a link that we can share this out for you? Or,
oh, absolutely. Let's see.
I don't see the link anywhere yet, so I don't know if anybody knows.
Oh, yes. It's on YouTube. So it basically, what I do typically is I record and then I share it on my social media. But
okay,
because I am that much of a backwards dinosaur guy, I apologize for that. Yeah. But in the meantime, I will get you that link. But please go ahead, tell us a little bit about your production process in the meantime.
So you can start stuff, because I'm getting ready to share the link for us here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off with how we met in.
I got it. It's right there.
Awesome. We met in 2018, and you know, shortly after that, started working together, and then kind of officially. Gosh, I keep forgetting that we're in 2020, so I'm like, okay, 2018 was not last year. So in 2019, we created In Symmetry Creations LLC, just to kind of make it, you know, official. And have pretty much collaborated on everything ever since. Now, Heirs of Isildur is our steampunk time travel series that was actually created by Matt before I ever was in the picture. He was about halfway done with the series, actually not even halfway done with the series when we met. So I came aboard as a story consultant and editor, because the story was already written. You know, I mean, he was writing the issues, but it was already outlined and plotted out. He knew what the ending was. And so I was, you know, served as editor on that. And then so Tales from Nocturnia is our first foray into something major that's been co-written. But I'll let Matt kind of talk about our production process a little bit.
So one of the things I will say about Heirs is, hold on, we are live now. I'm actually putting it over onto Twitter.
I know.
As well.
Here, I'll tell you guys what I posted, because like I totally fucked this up, man. I'm sorry, man. Anybody who thinks I'm a marketing god, you know, you can learn from my mistakes. I said Onward with Onrie Live is now live.
Is now live. We are live as live can be. We're trying to all learn in this new. It's just funny how Zoom meetings are now the thing. We did like 2 Zoom meetings over the weekend with, you know, people, and so it's just kind of the way things go now.
Well, you know, it again, it's just like I like just having sort of like an open conversation kind of a thing, because like I have my show that I script, you know, because at first I started doing like live events and stuff, and it was just basically me talking into a screen, which is not interesting. And then I started doing like more scripted episodes to like kind of tell a greater story, you know, and try and put some of those you know, film skills to work. And you know, now I decided with all this COVID-19 stuff to, you know, bring some guests on and get to know them better. And here I am, just totally dropping the ball, but I'm learning. I promise you that.
No, I mean, and everybody has a different process for doing it. Some are live, some are recorded, and then they drop like a week later. So everything's different. We just roll with whatever avenue we're going to be on.
So you guys met in 2018, and you've been working ever since.
Yep.
And like, is this now become a full-time thing since you guys are doing more conventions and stuff, or is this kind of like a side gig? Like, how do you guys? Well, it's not a side gig. It's an
put it this
endeavor.
way. We definitely put a full-time amount of time into what we do. That doesn't mean, I mean, we all know that the money in this end of the industry is not great. But that doesn't mean that we are not working our butts off to try and fix that. We are always looking at what we do from a business perspective. We don't write things because we're like, oh, let's just go write what the market wants. Because if we're going to write what the market wants, we're going to write nonsensical superhero crap. You know, and they want that kind of stuff. They want the next Deadpool. They want the next Spider-Man. They want the next Batman. I mean, you go into a convention, how many people want the Spider-Man stuff and the Batman? That's somebody else's IP. You know, you're never going to make it being the next such and such. You're going to make it being the first you. So we're always trying to keep that in mind. But it's tough. It's tough when you are trying to create your own content. We find ourselves in a bunch of different, very unique subgenres that all kind of meld together in very odd ways, because we always like to say we have one foot in the comics community, one foot in the steampunk community, and one foot in the metal music community. Yeah, it's 3 feet, but hey, that's just how we roll. But
well, we've got 4 feet.
Have you heard about
the third?
Have you heard about the third leg principle?
Oh, dang.
I don't know if I want to know about this.
No, sorry, Sarah. I'm going to keep this all ages appropriate. But
Okay.
if you weren't on the show, me and Matt here, we'd be making some naughty jokes.
Hey, look at that over there in the chat. We've actually got our video guy from Brazil that is
What's
in
up,
here.
man?
So Julian from Brazil is up in here. So
Right
since Julian's in here, we'll tell you about.
Oh, nice.
Like I said, we have the 3 different communities that we basically are involved in. Steampunk, because of the steampunk time travel series. When you see us at shows, Steph and I are always dressed in steampunk. We always are living the stories, living the characters. But I came from a metal music background. My original background was in the metal world. I toiled in the underground for years. My old band put out about 5 CDs. There's a couple of guys that went on to be pretty freaking famous that were in the bands. One of them is Sean Tibbetts, who's the bass player of Camelot. We tried to do what we could in that scene, and I stopped playing for a while because I was just completely burnt out. And when I decided to get back in, it was, hey, I want to play metal music, but I wanted more than just that. I wanted there to be story. I wanted there to be a larger universe than just the album sitting in front of you. And so that was the first seeds of having music and then having a little bit of a story to it. And the next thing you know, it was a full album and a full story. And then it was an 11-issue massive thing that turned into Heirs of Isildur. So that's why you've got a steampunk book that's got a 12-track metal CD and music videos that go with it.
That's really cool to have all those extra things like tacked on, because it's like you've now like expanded and gone into like different mediums to bring your whole thing together. And like, what's that been like? Was it a difficult transition going from music to comics, or did it feel like was it harmonic?
I would say harmonious. I would say my personal biggest transition point, and I probably would not be where I'm at mentally right now if Steph wasn't in the picture with me, is I wrote Heirs of Isildur as an ebook to start. It went from being an album and an ebook, and taking an ebook and bringing it back to something that was more comic style was not the easiest process. The Heirs of Isildur is way more text than you normally get in a comic and way more art than you normally get in a book. And she's the one that comes from the comic side of things and understanding the way comics have to be.
And I want to hear all about that. Finish what you're saying.
So when we've done our other titles, especially like Tales from Nocturnia, even though that one spawns off of Heirs of Isildur, we started as its own miniseries. So it was a clean slate, and we're like, okay, we're not going to have large narrative pieces and all that. There might be a summary at the beginning, just to get you just the lead in, but everything else, it's pure comic, and it follows a lot more. It doesn't follow all the comic guidelines, but it follows a lot more. So that way, if somebody is a comic fan, they're going to pick it up and not go, what am I looking at? They're going to pick it up and feel like they've actually picked up a comic story.
Right on. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And yeah, that's you always look at this kind of stuff, and it's one thing to say like, yes, I want to do this, but then it's another thing to actually like get it done. And obviously, like, you connected with Steph. So Steph, you're the comic person. What's your background in comics, and like, how were you able to like, help?
Was kind of crazy. I had always wanted to be a writer, and started and realized I had kind of had this story in my head for like 10 years, and realized that I was picturing it in comic form. And so I took like 6 months to learn how to write comic scripts. And I didn't just jump into it per se. I did spend a lot of time on learning how to write the comic form way. And found out about an online competition called Ghost City Comics Competition, and submitted a 1-page comic to it and became a finalist. And as crazy as it was, it just afforded me all these other opportunities. It just kind of came from that. People started seeing it on Twitter and getting in touch with me about other things. So I ended up doing 2 other anthologies, actually three anthologies total. I was in the Corpus anthology with artist Emily Pearson, and I was in the If anthology with Alterna Comics, which is a yearly anthology that they do, and there's like a different theme each year. And I was in it for horror, and with Francesco Iaquinta, who's done stuff with Alterna in the past and has a title coming out on Action Lab with Dylan Gilbertson this month, I think. And I did another Alterna anthology. It came out on a Wednesday. It was actually their very first issue that they did. And
I gotta say, Alterna, I got a lot of respect for Peter Simeti. That guy has been really a huge advocate for getting independent comics out into the market and to be seen by everybody. His efforts to bring back like newsprint and stuff like that is just afforded a lot of up and budding creators with like lots of ripe opportunity. I have friends that are also publishing through him. He's a fascinating guy. So
it's funny you bring up Peter because that's Steph and I were actually both personal friends with Peter before we met, and we actually met because, and we're talking years ago, Peter's always under the gun for whatever reason, and somebody had decided they wanted to talk some crap about Peter at that time. And I was one of the first people to come to his defense because I felt like the specific comment I felt was unfounded at that time. And there was one of those threads that just blew up. And 3 weeks later, over 100 posts later, Steph commented and said something very similar. And for whatever reason, I went and looked at her profile, and I really appreciated the art that was up there and made a comment back about, hey, your profile looks really good. And next thing you know, we're sitting on your show.
And it was actually the one
so
page,
cool.
the
one page that you did. Yeah.
So I had that, I don't know, it was on my profile somewhere, and so that was how we met. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's change gears a little bit. Let's talk about things that inspire you guys, like not just necessarily with your projects, but just in general. Like what's that one thing that, like, if you see it, is going to say, that makes me want to make comics, or, man, I really enjoyed that, and it's going to somehow impact me in the future. Like, any movies, video games, music, anything, like what inspires you to?
For me, I've always said that I'm a storyteller that has to use whatever device is around me to be able to tell my story. When I was a musician, I was never I'm going to be a great guitar player, because that's just not my hands. Like, I see guitar players that are freaking insane, like Malcolm Pugh from Inferi, or, people like that. I'm like, dude, I could never do that. Zach Leeser, my hands just don't want to do that. I'm not a guitar player. I'm a storyteller that happens to have to use instruments to play music or to get my ideas out there. I'm a storyteller that has to use written word or art to be able to bring that story to people. So I always am inspired by well-designed, well-written stories, like the series Travelers on Netflix. It was 3 seasons, and the way that was put together, you could tell that this person the writing team knew exactly where they're going to go. When you get to the last episode of every season, you're like, they completely knew where they were going to go. It's very well put together. The puzzle pieces all fit together. I love stuff like that.
What's the premise of that? I'm just curious.
Travelers is it's a time travel series about these individuals that can transfer their consciousness from the future back to the past, and they end up taking over bodies that are about to die. And they, say somebody is going to jump off a building. They are able to take over their body within 60 seconds before they jump off the building. So that person was going to die. But so they're able to take over that body and use that body to try and help. There's this big apocalyptic event that happens in the future that they're trying to stop.
Yeah.
And just the way they go about it. One of the cool things, and one of the things I have a big problem with, is I'm really big on exposition. Ask anybody that knows me.
So
I write a ton of exposition into things. Travelers does a really good job with finding ways to get that exposition out in very small chunks. You could have 2 people just walking down the street, and they'd be like, yeah, well, when such and such had this thing happen and we stopped being able to do this. And you're like, oh, that answers that big question I had from episode 1, but they didn't have to go into this big diatribe on episode 1 to explain to you the whole backstory and the whole world. They find ways to give you little bits of it as it goes to fill in all those gaps that they know people are going to have questions about. That's
and I'm all about that. I love because what really hooked me was when you told me it has a beginning, middle, and end, and I'm all about keeping things concise. I like when things end. I don't like when they go on and drone on forever. So I Travelers is just called Travelers.
Yes.
All right, I will definitely check that out.
Yep.
And Steph, before we go on to you, I just want to say too, like a lot of what you're saying, Matt, also applies to like comics because like I'm working on editing the script right now with a new up and coming writer and really sharp guy. He's got a really great story. And his script, however, is kind of like written as if it's going to be like a movie or a novel. And if it was a movie or a novel, it could work because you'd have more room to develop those characters. There's certain things you can't do in comics and maybe even in television too, especially when you're on a condensed like budget and, season time restraint. You have to kind of like get everything out there and, move on. And I came to him yesterday and I'm like, we need to basically chop your entire script in half. And, this is how I see your book being structured. And now I've thrown it back to him to change it. And I think the one thing that really affected him the most was he was worried that we wouldn't get to know his characters. But like what you were saying about Travelers, it's stuff like that I try and study too, because if I have my theory on everything taught to me by my co-writer on Yi-Sun Shin is when in doubt, throw it out. Like if you don't need to have 5 different scenes about the same thing, when you can condense it, that really kind of like pushes it forward and makes you engaged in the story. And now I'll shut up because I want to hear what Steph's been interested in and what you're doing.
Oh, I think it's true what you were saying too. As writers, I think we tend to overthink things a little bit, and that's why having an editor or a second, I mean, that's part of the reason why Matt and I do so well is that, whoever, when we're co-writing, there is usually somebody who is more, we say, in the driver's seat and passenger seat, but it's however you want to think of it, is that there's got to be somebody that is heading it up with just a little bit more, so that the other person can look at it from an editorial standpoint and have a little bit enough removed that we can catch those things. Because and not just typos, but like is the story concise? Is it making sense? Are all the things tying up together? But as far as inspiration goes, I have always loved. If you look at any of the comics that I wrote, any of my short comics, horror, sci-fi, and adventure are my jams. I was not like a normal girl growing up. I was always watching, Jaws, Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones. Those were like all the movies that I loved growing up. So those are like huge inspirations for me. And you'll see it in a lot of the stuff that I've written. There's like little nods, little homages to all the movies that I've loved. Just enough so that it doesn't seem like it's a ripoff. But I like dramatic pieces, but for me, writing is an escape. And if I'm reading comics, it's an escape, and it's comics. There should be an element of fun to it. It doesn't mean that dramatic comics and stuff that are telling a very serious story can't be that way. But I just want to write fun stuff and spooky stuff, and that's what I'm normally drawn to, and that's what's been fun about Tales from Nocturnia. Is it's medieval fantasy, but it's got, especially issue 2. We did a lot of fun things with it. It was definitely a hack and slash. I'm a D&D nerd. I've been playing for like 20 years.
Right on.
So that was awesome for me. It was just kind of like, okay, I could get behind this. This is totally like I could see this as like a campaign setting,
Right on. Yeah, and it's cool because all the movies you mentioned, I would say my biggest inspiration for Yi-Sun Shin has always been Star Wars because of, the fact that it's this grand epic, and I wanted to do a grand epic. So yeah, I'm very inspired by the original Star Wars, and yes, the prequels. I like the prequels, but I've been kind of hit or miss with the new stuff that comes. Yeah, Matt, you know what I'm talking about. I just don't want to say it how I really feel because I don't want to offend anybody. You know what I mean? But man, it's all those movies really fucking suck.
I think you're probably going to offend somebody by saying you like them, to be honest.
Exactly. I try and stay as neutral. If I don't have anything nice to say, it's better not to say anything at all, kind of a thing. But and I think that also kind of like goes into it, there's always something good you can say about someone too, because I think what pairs people up well is when and what I look at when it comes to editing, because the one thing that I've done, Matt, we'll touch on this in a little bit, is now that our wings have essentially been clipped, we can't go to conventions, we can't do what we're, you know, born and bred to do, go out there and fucking sell ourselves and, you know, share our work with the world and get as many copies of our books into fans' hands as we possibly can. You know, there's this thing like, how do we survive? And yet I see you guys, you know, all the time, everywhere on the internet now. And, you know, you guys are constantly out there trying to push your stuff. And the one thing that has happened for me is I got into editing more. So now I'm editing like 5 different projects. And I've been meaning to go freelance editing, but I just never really had the time to really jump on and do that, because I was always so committed to Yisun Shin, and I still am. But now it's like I have more time on my hands and I don't have any income coming in. So, you know, got to figure something out. So I took on all these editing projects. And then this week, I don't know if you guys are into video games, but the Final Fantasy VII Remake's coming out.
Yeah.
And Final Fantasy VII, the original game, that was the game that got me to like say like, oh man, I actually want to like work in entertainment and do stuff. Never could I have imagined that, like, you know, however many years have passed since then, like 20 years have passed since that game came out, that I imagined that I would actually be doing it and playing the fucking remake at the same time. It's so cool. Yeah. So, I mean, I think this has really been, at least for me, I don't know how it's been for you guys, and I'd love to hear what you think, but for me, it's been a revelation and a renaissance in a lot of ways, because it's like, you know, I think our best art is typically generated in times of crisis. And, you know, we're kind of like in the middle of one right now. Not kind of, we just are. And,
yeah.
Oh, did we lose you, Matt? He's like, fuck these guys. I don't want to fucking hear this. I don't hear this bald motherfucker drone on. Like, I got shit to do. I got art to make.
He'll jump back on he's on his tablet, and sometimes it can.
No worries, it's all good. You know,
so.
It's all good. Don't worry about it. We just got you and I will keep it going. And in the meantime, we
don't need him.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, like as I was wrapping up, hopefully by the time I'm done wrapping up, he'll come back on, and then you know. But yeah, it'll all work out. And I forgot what I was saying, so if you want to just kick it off.
So I think I'm like, yeah, thanks a lot, Matt. No, I've heard that it's funny because you said it feels like we might be in like a renaissance, and that's like the 3rd time I've heard that this week from other people, and it's kind of nice to have that hope.
And you know, I'm thinking about news. And I'm thinking about bringing back tights, because like that's what everybody wore in the renaissance. And here's the thing. This is why it's not a like a fashion thing, because I ain't gonna like present myself in front of people. But you wear the tights because that's what they all wore back then, like those fucking socks or the stockings or whatever. You know how they dress up? It was like all elaborate, shit, you know. And like, you know, it looked so goddamn uncomfortable. Like I'm a jeans and a t-shirt kind of guy, you know, like.
So I think Matt mentioned it earlier. We're at every show in full steampunk.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's awesome, but it's not, I don't know how cosplayers do it. Like props to cosplayers, because I have like pared it down. When we first started, I was in like the corsets and stuff. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't. How am I supposed to bend underneath a table and like get like merchandise out and give it to somebody and be on my feet all day in these uncomfortable shoes? I'm like, no, we need to compromise here a little bit on our wardrobe. So it's gone more like Western steampunk, which is totally more my jam. Because I'm like, if I'm going to be at a show for 8 hours a day, I need to be comfortable, because that stuff, what they wore back then, and I will not even get into like the big dresses and stuff like that. But I think I'm going to tell Matt to do tights next time. See, he agrees. Did you see that? You saw it right here.
I'll wear tights.
See, I'm telling you, the tights. And here's the thing: the extra space that covers up everything for men, you know, might inspire us in some way. We might do some like really crazy shit, you know. Because
I already wear vests and ascots, and
it might get us a few more sales, which I'm okay with. You know,
well, I don't think it would get me sales. I think people would pay me to put clothes back on. I think that's what would happen in my case. Matt, great to have you back on the show.
Hey, sorry about that, man. My
he had to break for 30 seconds, and you know,
So one of
the advertising. Go on.
One of the things that you said earlier that you know, one of our big yes is how we are coping in this time. The mantra that Steph and I basically adopted is, you know, either you're taking advantage of the time you have right now, or you're going to fall behind those that are.
Yep.
And one of the things for she and I that is, we're already one step ahead of a lot of people, is that we all day long are already in this situation. I'm in Florida, she's in California, and we treat every work day just like we were in an office. We turn on the video chat and it's like we're sitting in cubicles right next to each other, and we do what needs to get done. So although we're cooped up in our houses and we don't have shows, I'm also a soccer official, so I don't have the soccer games to do, and our kids have got a lot of events that aren't there now. We can focus more on what we need to do. We have got the Tales from Nocturnia 3 script. We're literally just working on some stuff with the finishing moments of that right before we got on. And there's a lot of things like how you talked about, you know, what's going to work in a book is not going to work in a comic, is not working in cinema. There was a couple things literally just changed because the part was a little too cinematic and needed to be a little more comic. You know, the album for Heirs of Isildur came out over 2 years ago, and there's been a lot of work that needs to get done on it, and kind of organizing all the pieces. So the sequel album, we've been able to do a lot of work on that and get a lot of progress made there. The sequel for Heirs of Isildur, Heirs was 11 issues and then a 268-page trade paperback. We've been working on that as well. And we've been trying to just figure out what are the things that we want to do when this stuff starts opening back up. Where do we want to see ourselves positioned? And let's prepare for those things as well, so that way, if by some unknown matter, they're like a month from now, they're like, hey, you guys can start having shows again. We've knocked the virus down. That we're ready to do it. Or if they're like, hey, you guys can't have another live show until 2021, we're trying to prepare for that as well, prepare for all the different contingencies that could be out there.
That is excellent, because that's exactly what I'm doing too. Like, I'm in a very fortunate position where I'm not bleeding. If anything, I've been getting money back because of all the shows that have been canceling, you know, completely. Like, so far, the only 2 shows that I got recouped for were Comic Palooza and East Coast Comic Con. Now, truth be told, I would much rather be at both those shows so that I could make back, you know, 4 times what I invested into it. But, you know, I think that it's important right now for us to kind of keep going and have a plan, because what you do during this time is essential, and things will go back to normal. I mean, the way I look at COVID-19 is it's like a wildfire, and every fire eventually, like, it spreads, but then after a while it burns out. And this will happen too. And I know a lot of people, I'm starting to know more people who have had it and have survived it. I also know of people who have died from it. So it's, you know, it's kind of a scary thing. You know, we don't know where it's going, but either way, us as creators who have no control over what goes on outside of ourselves and our projects, we need to be prepared for battle when the time comes back. And so it's very refreshing to hear that, you know, you guys, you know, that we're cut from the same cloth, and that we see this the same way. Now, Steph, I'm going to throw this over to you because you're the comic person. I think a lot of comic book creators kind of like imagine aspiring comic book creators, the professionals, they kind of sit there and they grumble, but you know, the aspiring comic creators out there who are looking to do this as a full-time job are probably going to start where we are, where they're going to be self-publishing. Like, the fucked up thing about us is that we wanted to stay in self-publishing. We like this, you know, because, you know, it's more fun to get out there and be at conventions and do this kind of stuff and interact with your fans and things like that. So throwing it over to you, from a creative standpoint and a business standpoint, how did you learn to really hone both, you know, that you needed to hone both areas in order to like really, you know, make this work?
And it's funny because there was a time when I said, I will never do a Kickstarter. That seems like hell and stress, and I don't want to put myself through hell. I mean, ask Matt. I literally like went on a diatribe one day and was like, hell no, I'm not doing Kickstarter. That sounds horrible. But here we are. We've done 3 campaigns that have all successfully funded, and are I would say crowdfunding as a whole is the most, of the things that we do, is the most lucrative. that's not to say that shows aren't, because we've had some really amazing shows where we have done really well. But Kickstarter is what gets us out, gets our names out there, gets us, a little bit of a larger fan base. We have had people that have backed all 3 campaigns that we've never met. It's not like we know them through social media or met them at a show. They just came across our campaign, and now they are supporting us each and every time. So that has been a really great business model. It's not the only business model that we plan on having. And but yeah, you were saying, self-publishing, there's merit. I mean, I have stuff published with Alterna. We are not ruling out ever not going with a publisher for anything, but self-publishing right now is what we can do. Everything is shut down. Diamond is embroiled in what it is right now for publishers and comic stores. Self-published creators, we're kind of over here going, we can still create stuff, and we could still run a Kickstarter, not maybe today, but we could still run one in like a little while once things start to rebuild a little bit and people are like, okay, I'm ready to be, I'm sitting here in quarantine, I need stuff to read, I want to be entertained. So business-wise, that's been one of the best things that we've been able to do. When we couple that with the shows, we had a really good end of the last year and beginning of this year. Of course, now we don't have the shows, so. But we're not going to sit back and go, okay, well, we don't have that, so I guess we're just sunk, So we're kind of, talking strategy about, when do we launch and what's the easiest way to do that. But yeah, that's been, I think, the most surprising thing for me as a comic creator, how advantageous crowdfunding has been for us.
Yeah. I I'm still kind of trying to crack that nut. What works so well about what I do personally is the personal contacts I make. It's being out on the front lines. It's offering people everything, like, here it is, hold it in your hands. And that's how I managed to get my sales, and actually the enthusiasm I try and project onto customers too, as I put books in their hands. It's really, I enjoy that process very much. I enjoy it as much as I enjoy the actual creating of the book itself. And I think that's kind of like that in itself is creativity in a different way. Like, it's not your typical approach to sales. It's like when you go to a mall and you got like some guy in a collared shirt offering to save you money on your cable bill, like that's a sales pitch. But what we do is so different. We're trying to get people excited about what we do. We have a very short amount of time to do it, and we do it in a place where people gather because they want to blow their fucking money and they want to enjoy themselves, and we're the entertainment, Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I think one of the things about crowdfunding as well, and I make no bones about it, the business model, the financial model of the comics world doesn't make any sense. It's absolutely and completely broken. Whether you are a publisher that's going through Diamond and waiting for Diamond to give you money that they basically said they're not going to give you right now, or if you're a writer, if you're a writer and you think that you're going to make money by being on a publisher, and then that publisher is going to go out and sell thousands of copies, and then you're going to get enough money back to pay your art team and then maybe pay yourself, you are crazy, because it's not going to happen. Even people talk about being on large, companies like Image. They're not making money if you're a writer. If you don't have a crowdfunding component that's built in, or if you're not somebody that is selling things hand over fist at shows, you're never going to make that money just from being with a publisher. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't be with a publisher. I'm saying that
you have to think outside of the box. You can't just,
yes.
You're 100% right. And, I learned this lesson, and I fell into that pocket of saying, I'm not self-published exclusively, like going off of what Steph was saying. Steph, you've been published by Alterna. I'm all about working with other publishers on other projects. I've just learned that I can make more money with Yisunshin by doing it myself. The crowdfunding campaigns that I've conducted, I'm not very. I don't look at my results and think to myself, man, I led a really good campaign, because I didn't see my numbers like skyrocket. I made my goals, but it wasn't like, holy shit, like I raised like,
same with us.
Yeah, like $50,000 in a campaign. Like, you see some of this shit, it's crazy, and no one is ever flocking to it. So like, you got to get people's eyes on your page. And it's like that. How long are your campaigns usually?
30 days.
Okay, so 30 days. That's what I did with mine too. I mean, that is just the most goddamn stressful period, because it's like it's like a 3D convention that stretches out for 30 days. That's how I feel,
Well, and one of the things too about it is, I feel like every one of the pieces kind of works together, and to look at the financial success or failure of each one individually, this actually goes into a positive to publishers, positive to shows, positive to Kickstarter campaigns altogether. You look at grocery stores, and they'll make you can buy this can of soup, and it's going to be 29 cents for this can of soup. Those are called loss leaders. They know they are going to lose money on that can of soup, but that's going to be the thing that's going to entice you to come in the door to potentially buy the other items. So they're not as much worried about making the money off of that thing as to get you in the door to make the money on everything else. If like for instance, if one of the things that worked well for us with Steph having the stuff on Alterna was there's a little more recognition. People know who she is. People know who we are, because we've done a lot of Alterna Comics live shows, and so that may be something where there's a familiarity with us, and we might sell more at a show. Or those people from doing the different events we have might go to the Kickstarter because they've heard about our name and they know who we are, and then they go to the Kickstarter, or vice versa. Maybe somebody that saw us on Kickstarter and maybe they backed us at, just to get a digital copy, and they liked it. They go and see us at a show, and they go buy everything we have at the table at a show because they're familiar with us from something else. So it's not always about the financial success of the one thing, is every piece can be used to build all the other ones up.
Yeah. It's interesting, because I've been kind of like thinking about something the other day. So like, typically when I do a convention, I don't like to appear on panels during show hours. And the main reason is because, during show hours, like, I have opportunities to sell more books if I'm there and engaging people, than as opposed to me not being there for an hour. And every time I've done panels, I've noticed that maybe a quarter of the people who attend these panels have already bought the book anyway. So it's kind of one of those situations where I don't like to do it, but I've been thinking about it, and seeing how this has been going for me, appearing on this. So it's just a professional question to you guys, like me telling you, what my opinions are. Where do you guys gauge on panels, and should I be doing more, and what do I have to gain from doing more panels? This is me asking you guys for advice from, my point of view.
I would say this: we're in a little bit of a different position because we have the two of us that can both successfully man our table at a show.
Yeah, that. Fuck you guys for having that shit. I'm trying to.
But and there's even times too where my family members will come and help us out some as well, so that way Steph and I can both go be on a panel together. But we've always felt that getting in front of people at panels is actually really good, because it gets you a crowd that actually wants to go and hear from you. We've done panels at Rob Anderson has done a lot of panels for us through Indie Advocates. We've done panels of our own at Ocala Comic Con. We've been on panels at MegaCon and some of the other larger shows. We've actually had some panels. Steph has been on panels at San Diego Comic Con and WonderCon.
Comic-Con and WonderCon.
How was that experience?
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah,
right. I have my little nameplate from it, and I've got.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We've had one of the weirdest experiences that we've had at shows was there's been panels that I've been on or I've run. I'm like, oh man, that panel rocked. That panel was amazing. The content of the panel was so killer. And then you leave the panel and it's complete dead silence. And nothing. Nobody comes and sees you from that.
There's no passion.
But then there's been but then there's been other panels. I did a series last year. Rob Anderson had called me down. He said, hey, I need somebody to come cover a panel for me at Tampa Bay Comic Con. Can you come on down there? I'm like, sure, if I can get in for the day, no problem. And David Byrne from Stake, he was cool. He's like, hey man, I'll give you a couple feet on my table if you're going to be down here on Saturday. You know, that way you can bring a little bit of your stuff, because we actually had a Kickstarter going at that time as well. Ran a panel first thing in the morning, thought it was great. Didn't really get much return from it. Did a panel in the middle of the day. There was a lot of people in there, but I personally didn't feel great about the way that the panel, it just wasn't the best panel I'd been on. Went back up to the table, and it was complete bonkers. It was absolutely nuts how many people came from that panel up to the table and bought stuff or supported the Kickstarter. And then there was another panel later on in the day that I wasn't even on. I just went because there was a steampunk group that was doing something the week after that we were involved in. And I just went and attended that. And they're like, hey, there's Matt Knowles who's going to be at such and such next week. And after that, it was bonkers up at his table. And I'm like, you never really know which panels are going to be the ones that are going to be lucrative for you as far as actually selling stuff at the table, but you'll never know if you're not on.
Yeah.
You got to try.
And you know, another thing that kind of keeps me, you know, strapped to my table is the fact that I don't really have the opportunity to have somebody watch my stuff, you know, because, you know, it's like the you know, the show services, they can have someone watch your stuff, but they can't actually make transactions for you. They're not allowed legally to do that. So that's been another thing that's kind of discouraged me from it. But Steph, please, you take the ground now.
I love doing panels. And actually, Matt and I have done more panels together when we've been at a show together than separately. There's been a few times that we've had to be like, kind of decide which one's going to go do it and the other one will stay behind. But we tend to still try to do the same thing. It's because we're a pair. And so it's, you know, we're, you know, representing our company. We'd like to both be there for that. But I love doing panels. I don't know. It's always one of those things where it's like, you never know who's going to be the audience and hear what you're going to have to say. And we've had people come over to our table afterwards and say, what you said really spoke to me, or, you know, I really liked what you said. And, you know, and I can't tell you how many people we've had come up to us and have said, you know, I want to write, I'm a writer. And, you know, you really said this one thing and now I'm going to go home and write. And like, those are the kinds of things you love to hear. You're not going to quite get that from just selling a book to somebody, because they take the book and they go off and you hope that they might find you and tell you whether they liked it or not. But most of the time that transaction ends there and you don't see that.
Yes, that's the biggest problem I have, is the fact that I've got so many sales now, but like there are very few and far in between do people actually post about reading the book and reviewing it. And, you know, by this point I would think I would have, you know, hundreds of thousands of reviews, but you know, it's kind of like it's tapered off. And it's almost like now whenever I actually approach sites to review stuff, they're like, yeah, you know, like I never hear anything from them. And it's just a really it bums me out, because it's like, you know, here's guys who work at Marvel and DC. They get reviewed all the time, you know, like what's the big deal here? But I wanted to throw this over to a question, because we have a mutual friend and a mutual creator who is obviously listening very intently, Kitsune Windsor, and he's got a question for you guys, and I think it would be an excellent question for you guys to answer. He's wondering how you get the best results with building your base.
I think you always, the first thing I would say is you always have to be ready to build your base. And what I mean by that is, have a stack of your business cards with you. Somebody you might just be, you know, walking in the mall or walking at Walmart when you can be within 6 feet of somebody and strike a conversation with somebody, or you might, you know, that might be the only time you see that person. One of the things we've been doing a lot better on at our live shows is finding ways to get people to sign up for our email list in a way that gives them a benefit. Hey, you know, like when we were getting ready to release Tales of Nocturnia 2, we didn't have the issues in hand yet, but we had some shows, and we're like, hey, look, if you buy whatever at the table, you sign up for email list, we'll email you a 3-page preview digitally of the issue, so they could get something for signing up for the email list. They knew it wasn't just going to be them just getting spam. There's actually a benefit of them getting that, and that has helped as well. The other thing is that people have to see passion in what you do. Whether you're at a show, whether you are online, you know, if you're not excited about what you do, if you're not excited about the story you're telling, you can't expect others to be excited about it and go and tell people as well. We have a couple of people that every time we post something, they're liking it, they're sharing it, they're speaking, every time like, oh, we're getting ready to release this thing, they lose their dang mind. We have one of our fans that is now 3 times paid to be in our issues. Each Kickstarter we did, they paid to be in the issue.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up too. Yeah, is that we try to have fun with our fans and interact with our fans, and make them feel like people. So that, and I say fans, I feel weird saying that. Readers, whoever.
No, but they're your fans. They're throwing money at you they are your fans. They can be your fans and friends.
Yeah, and we've done it a lot now, where we have given them opportunities to be drawn into the issue. We did it big time in an issue of HEIRS, but now we're doing it as a reward tier when we do Kickstarters. And the response to that has been crazy. And we've actually made these people characters that have speaking lines and have like backstories. And for somebody to look at that and go, I'm in a comic book. Not only am I in a comic book, but this is my character. And so we do like a little like yearbook thing at the end of the issue that has their picture and their, and it'll say, their real name and I'll have their character name. We do those, and we've done that for we've done that for kids. And it's amazing, the response, the excitement that you see when you see somebody look at that, when we've been working months and months on that. But it's just making them feel like we actually care, because we do. We have had people that have come up to us at shows. We do a lot of there a lot, so we do a lot of local Florida shows, and you kind of see the same people that come to these shows. And when we met them at the very first show, they specifically look for our booth because we've taken the time to talk to them like they're, and by now they're friends. It's like a reunion when we see each other. So there's the business side to it, which is what Matt said, build the email list, make sure that you're, getting the opportunity to tell people about your stuff. But then there's the kind of the more personal side of it too. And that's what people are going to remember you for.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think one of the things you said earlier too was community. You can't expect that you're going to be able to build your base if you're not helping others to build their base as well.
I agree.
Because and like I said, we'll name no names, but there's one comic creator that early on really rubbed me the wrong way, because they were always out there begging for people to buy my book, support this, support this.
I hope it wasn't me, man.
Oh man,
he's not naming names because
just by you having us on this show completely shows that you are exempt from this. The thing that I will say is this comic creator, I've never seen them support anybody else. I've never seen any post promoting other individuals. I've never seen them backing other Kickstarter campaigns. And I'm just like, you can't be always just about yourself. There's a group of guys, a group of creators in Florida, and Rob Anderson has set up shows for people. Travis Gibb has set up shows for people. Joel Anderson has put his name out there. Richard Rivera has put his name out there. David Byrne has. We have, where always trying to find little ways to get these groups of people together to try and help give them an opportunity. Some of them don't work. Some of them do work. But you can see that people are out there being selfless, trying to help other people and help them to create as well. And that is huge, because the people that Rob put us in front of last year, the people that Travis put us in front of, the people that we've put some of these other people in front of have been some big contacts for them. And, you couldn't do that on your own. You wouldn't be able to do that if you were all about yourself and gimme, and buy my stuff, and you're not doing anything to help anyone else out as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, the thing is too, is you can't inspire others if they can't inspire you in some way. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot. And one of the reasons why, again, I'm just so grateful for this opportunity to, talk to you guys and learn from you and hear what you have to say about all this. Now, we're kind of coming to the end of the show, and I typically like to leave this show on a positive note. And you guys, the reason why I asked you to come on here is because when we were on that panel together, you guys both displayed such positivity, such an optimistic outlook, which we need more than ever right now. So you guys are both Florida based. And so far, the first show on my lineup that has been moved over is MegaCon, which is supposed to happen on June 4th. How do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about that? Do you think do you feel optimistic that that's going to happen, or do you think it's going to be pushed back or canceled?
Here we go. Yes, I can tell you, I feel very positively about the fact that it's going to be happening on a different date. Yeah, the reason I say it is because we've already had 7 shows or appearances. They could have been smaller shows or bigger shows. 7 of them have already been moved, canceled, or postponed.
Yeah, no. So is MegaCon. MegaCon has been moved already, right? So
well, here's the thing: MegaCon was moved already. MegaCon was moved already, but there are at least 4 other shows that were going to be in that same time frame in Florida that have all moved, or I mean, they are in August or September or October. I would be very surprised to see MegaCon happen on the dates that they rescheduled to. We're prepared if they are, because we already have some stuff set up with a Central Florida Steampunk Association. We're supposed to be set up with them. We have a few panels and a seminar set up with them. So if MegaCon happens, we'll probably still be there. We just have to make sure the logistics work. But for that to happen in June, you're talking 2 months from now, and happen where you have 100 to 250,000 people there seems highly unlikely. I would say, to me, it seems far more likely that you're going to see smaller events you can manage the number of people that are going to be there happen before you start seeing some of the major shows happen again, because there's just too many people. The first show that we had that got canceled was Emerald City Comic Con.
Yeah, same here. That was such a bummer.
Yep.
Yeah, so you were going to be at Emerald City?
Yes, I'll be there in August. Fuck yeah.
So Emerald City last year, were you at the one last year?
Yes, I've been going there for the last 7 years. I love it.
So that's probably that's probably where we saw each other before. So we didn't have a booth last year. We were going to be set up with Richard Rivera from Stabity Bunny. We were going to be set up with him.
Dude, Richard's a buddy of mine. I met him last year. Yeah,
he's a good
guy.
Richard's the best.
He is.
He's actually in Tales from Nocturnia too.
He's one of the drawn-in people.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So you look at Emerald City Comic Con. We walked the floor last year, all the whole time. Saturday was the most claustrophobic, insane thing where it was. If Steph had to stand behind me and I would do the fullback thing where I would just kind of plow through everybody, because there was no way that she was going to get through the crowd.
Because he's 6'3" and I'm like 5'1". So
no, I totally get it. It's okay. Matt, I would be hiding behind you too. And Steph, I'd be behind you
just
as well.
hide behind Matt, everybody.
Yeah, no, I'd go behind you. I'd just.
It'd be like Scooby Doo, line of
Yeah.
Creepy.
I'm like Shaggy. I gotta tell you, I'm Shaggy all the fucking way. Right.
But yeah, we'd love to be there. We hope that Emerald City happens the way that it's supposed to in August. We had a comic book store signing set up. We had a bunch of great things set up for the event this year. But I think that where you started this conversation off at was, we have to find other ways to be able to promote ourselves, so if these things don't happen again, we're not completely devastated.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think that's a really realistic way of looking at it. You're not like blowing smoke up anybody's ass and saying, yeah, it's going to happen. Because the truth is, none of us fucking know what's going to happen. So, we're hopeful it'll happen. The likelihood of it is probably slimmer to none. I'm still keeping my fingers crossed because it's just April right now. And I'm hoping that by the end of this month, we can kind of see something. And maybe it's a bad thing, because I'll be really upset if if it doesn't happen, simply because, hey, I wanted it to and I couldn't. And that's why I think it's really important to focus on, yourself and really, use this time to improve yourself. So, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Please, tell us where we can find you. And, one last promo before we say goodbye.
Well, you want to start, Steph? You want me to start
We can. I'll do part. We'll do our thing that we don't.
Yeah, sure.
I always end up messing it up at some point. But
no worries.
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at SCannon Comics on Twitter, and Comic Writer Steph on Instagram, and Steph Cannon on Facebook. And then we have all of our social media for Symmetry Creations, and we have social media for HEIRS as well, which I'll let Matt be the one to tell you all about that, so I don't stumble over my words to talk about it.
So HEIRS of Isildur is on all social media as just HEIRS of Isildur, HEIRSOFISILDUR. InSim is on Facebook as just InSim, INSYM. It's on Twitter as InSim Creations. You can go to the In Symmetry Creations website, insymmetrycreations.com, Heirs of Isildur website, or Tales from Nocturnia. Just real quick about our titles. Heirs of Isildur is a 268-page trade paperback graphic novel that was created from 11 individual comic issues. It's a steampunk time travel series. They would like to say is time travel in reverse. If I had a nickel for every time I said it, I'd be rich. But it's a story of a watchmaker who lives in a conservative little enclave who's all about making sure time works exactly as it should, who accidentally opens up a time portal and starts bringing people from other eras to him. The rub of the story is he has to figure out ways to be able to hide and integrate these individuals in his little enclave of Shadow's Haven, which is a very puritanical little town. People that are medieval kings and girls coming in from the future with blue and purple hair. And the whole story is about, how do these people figure out how to exist in this town, and can they exist in this town? We also have Tales from Nocturnia 2. We just released the second issue of the 3-part miniseries earlier this month. It was actually supposed to debut on the floor at Emerald City Comic Con. It's going to be a 3-issue miniseries. We just released issue number 2. There's 6 different collectible covers. People like Brian Silverbacks, Drew Pritchett, Chris Rao, and then Thomas Tenney, who works for Marvel and does Creepshow on the Shudder Network. Got a lot of fun cameos that are in this issue. You've got Richard Rivera from Stabby Bunny. You have the entire band of Inferi on the Artisan Era record label that is actually drawn in, and then we have some other fans that were drawn in as well. We'd love to see you guys. Go take a look at our social media. Go take a listen to our music. We have some music videos that go along with Heirs of Isildur, and one that is actually the split point between Heirs of Isildur and Tales from Nocturnia. The song is called Lovelorn Betrayal, and you can actually learn a little bit about something that happens in Heirs, but also is like the issue 0 to let you know what happens before Tales from Nocturnia starts. So that's what I got.
Awesome. Guys, I look forward to the opportunity to shake your hands in public and to see you, and maybe even grab a beer one of these days after a hard day on the floor.
When all of this is over, we definitely want to actually meet up now that we've
I would like to.
That would be awesome.
For sure. Yeah, that'd be great. And I look forward to it. That time will come.
Yep.
And until then, take care of yourselves and be well. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes.
Thanks so much.
Care.
Bye.
Take care, guys. All right, folks. Not next week. Sorry, Thursday. This Thursday, we got Christian Gossett coming on. Our time slot is going to move up a little bit. It doesn't matter because it's not like we have any dedication to our time slots or anything like that. So this show basically goes on whenever I can get our guests and whenever they can tune in. And I'm always going to be pushing it anyway. And thank you so much for tuning in. I'm having a lot of fun with this. I'm learning something new all the time. And today's guests, they really got me to start thinking about things a little bit differently when it comes to Kickstarter, and just seeing how they're banded together. It gives me great hope in the future of our business. So I'll see you guys on Thursday, and until then, onward to victory. Right after I end this broadcast.